All right, so I'm in Rhino. Just going to do a quick reminder of how to again I'm go from Rhino to Illustrator. You've done this before, but again, it's not maybe not doesn't hurt to go over this again. So anyway, I have this. I have a clipping plane in front, obviously, so I'm slicing it open. Remember, you can adjust those clipping plane properties. I can go to the layer of the geometry that's being cut through, and I can change how it's formatted. When it's being cut through with a clipping plane, I can put a pattern inside. I can beef up the line weights around the edges of things that are being cut through. All right, and so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. This looks fine to me. Um, and again, just as a quick reminder, I can go to View and Capture to File. Here I can say, do I want a transparent background or do I just want to leave it as white? What kind of scale do I want? Right now, it's telling me that my viewport is 2000 or sorry, that my viewport is, yeah, 2000 pixels wide, 2026, and then 1446 high. If I wanted something a little larger, I could double the size. When you double the size, you're doubling the width and the doubling the height, so you sort of square everything. So you get basically four times the amount of information when you start to take into consideration the area, right? So okay, I'm gonna hit OK, and then here I can start to save things. I've already saved a number of these things, so I'm just going to move on to Illustrator. Da, 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 da. Let's see. There we are. Why does it keep asking me this? What? Come on. All right. And we talked a little bit about this the other day, right? But I wanted to sort of go through this and make sure I'm recording. And let's see. So one of the things I might do, I'll just delete all this stuff away. Let's talk about and maybe review how you can start to navigate through Illustrator, right? So there's a couple of really important things that I might not have covered so well, just in quickly going through this stuff. But I highly recommend, unless you're an Illustrator Pro already and you know where everything is to go to the Windows pull down in Illustrator, and for the workspace, go to Essentials Classic. Watch what happens. If I go to Essentials, things start to disappear. And now suddenly tools that I really use a lot aren't in this top bar. I don't think that's progress at all. Don't hide that stuff from me. Windows, Workspace, Essentials Classic, and now suddenly we have things like whenever I have something selected, I can change its opacity. When I have something that's vector selected, I can change its fill or its stroke color, its outline. And when I start to select things, you'll start to see both X and Y position coordinates, as well as width and height fields that you can begin to very precisely give something a dimension rather than just sort of stretching it and eyeballing it. So, at any rate, another great thing is this document setup button. So if I go to document setup and I go to edit artboards, now I can start to create multiple pages. I can create multiple artboards. I can arrange them however I want, down here, up here. Maybe I want to go from left to right or from top to bottom. But I can start to make more pages. And let's see, this one is width 16.732302, and then the height is 11. I think I just want 17. So 11 by 17. Let's just make this a nice number. 11 by 17. Select this one. This one's close. It's 17 by 10 point something. I'm just going to say 11. See how when I select things, I get a width and a height, and I can then very precisely give it the right dimensions rather than just sort of, again, trust me, bro, sort of eyeballing it. Let's see here. 17, 11, not 1, 11. There we go. Try to get these to line up a little bit. There we are. You can see that, if you have the smart guides going, then it sort of helps you line things up or tries to figure out what you're trying to line up and then it then helps you. All right. And then when I just go back to this cursor, I'm right back into everything. All right. So I can zoom in and out. Now I have like four pages right now. Okay. Something that we didn't talk about much at all, but I think is really important are some of the options that you might have docked over here on the right. So for instance, if I go up to the very top, there's a paint palette icon, and that's color. And so when I start to make something, let's say draw my own shape, let's say I'm going to go over to the toolbar and click this rectangle tool. And if I want to make a big sort of ground, sort of a post-shade base, oops, let's see. Right, I can select, I can make this, sorry, a rectangle. I don't know what this is doing here. Just zoom in so I can actually get a little more control. But right now you can see that it just has a white fill and then no outline. I'm going to leave the outline, again, as transparent. But for the fill, I'm going to go over to this color and I'm just going to hit the black and make it black fill, right? So the colors are over here and there's multiple ways of sort of seeing these. If for some reason you don't see a paint palette over here, or let's say it's just floating, you can always, let's say it's floating. You can always just bring it over here and dock it. See how it's turning blue? And now you can again dock all these. You'll just see the icons and then you can go back and forth. So there's colors. Another important one I find is stroke or basically line weight. So if I have, let's just turn it this way so that now it's a white or a clear transparent fill, but with a black outline. If I select this, I can always change the line weight here. So now I change it to a line weight of 5 points. It's much thicker than let's say 0.25, much thinner, right? Okay, so that's how you can begin to adjust some of these things. And that's to say, I have my paint, let's say my colors tools, my stroke, uh, or line weight here. If you don't see something that you need over here, you can go to the Windows pull down and you'll see that there's a big long list of boxes that you can toggle on and then drag over and dock onto the right where you want. So let's say I wanted to see links. I can click that. There's links and actions, and I can just drag it over here and dock it. One other thing I'm going to show you that I think is really important is that just like Rhino and AutoCAD and we have layers, right? So it looks like these sheets of paper that are sort of stacked on top of each other. Actually, it looks like a baseball diamond. But anyway, uh, and what you can see is that I have several layers, a layer 1, a layer 33, layer 24. I don't know why I have a layer 24 and 33, but I can then go ahead and select these two. Let's hit the trash. I'll just start with a layer 1. I can turn layers on and off, seeing them, lock them, etc. Right? So we'll talk a little more about that because there's times when we need to sort of separate things out on layers. It becomes really handy. And sometimes when we bring a detailed drawing from AutoCAD or Rhino into Illustrator, what we like to do is preserve the layers that you used in Rhino or Autodesk or like say AutoCAD, right? And so that way you can then select everything on this layer, set it not to the layer color of like magenta or green or I think about A doors, things like that. You can start to then select everything at once in that layer, change the line weight and change the line color and change the line type all at once. So it's helpful. Anyway, more about that as we go. I'm sorry I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but I just want to point that out, right? Window workspace, I recommend Essentials Classic so that you have the same setup that I do up here, and then you have some boxes, some really common and helpful boxes over here on the right. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and I'm going to place some of these things. Place. Remember, I have an axon. Oh, yeah, look at that axon. Let's see. Which one's a good axon to use? This one looks all right. Let's try this one. No, no, maybe not. Let's try this one. Kind of weird. Has a hidden lines on, but it is what it is. Actually, yeah, yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I can't make up my mind. Maybe I'll try this one. Place this, pop. You can see that it's much bigger than my document size. I'm going to go ahead and um, let me just move this around. I mean, I know my document, my page size is 11 by 17. So with this selected, I can go to the transform up here. And now I can see that the size of this image is 72 inches long, 40 inches high. That's kind of extreme. I think I'll probably change this so that at the most it's only 11 inches long. Or sorry, 17. Sorry, because I have 17-inch. There we go. Right. Now, if I change the width and not the height, that could be a problem. What I've done is I've made sure that this is toggled on to constrain the width and height proportion. So as I change the width, it maintains the aspect ratio and automatically changes the height as needed, right? If I didn't have this on and I changed the width, let's see, let's make it something extreme, like 50 inches. You can see that's just going to stretch it. We don't want that, right? We want to maintain the exact same aspect ratio. And I'm just going to now just sort of slide this down so that it actually sits at the bottom of the page. All right. And I'm going to start with the axon. I'm going to add some humans and some trees. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. I'm going to open and I'm going to go to Entourage. I have my own folder here. These are all the things that I just uploaded to Canvas that you can download. You can see that we have trees in plan view, right? Like what you would see if you were looking down at a tree canopy. We have some side view, elevation, section view trees as silhouettes. And then we have something similar with humans, right? So here we go, stretching or pushing a wall over, or I don't know what they're trying to do, or pointing at people awkwardly. Some people are just socially awkward, I guess, even in silhouette land. All right, but do you have more, right? So there's cyclists, there's people sitting, there's people talking, laughing, um, or even sitting down and having a picnic, or just going on a walk, or etc. All right, and then I'll show you guys. And then I have some other tree packs. Sometimes these are what's nice about these is that they're actually in silhouette, or sorry, in axonometric. So you can see that they're casting shadows at a 30/30, which is nice, and that they're sort of rendered so you're looking down. Um, and there's several versions of these that I've given you, I believe. Yeah, so I'll show you some of these. Some of them have sort of tone to them to sort of make them pop a little more. Um, okay, so anyway, I'm actually going to open up. Let's see. Maybe I'll open up this one. Here we go. All right, all right, all right. Look at that. So, um, one thing I'm going to notice or look at is that my building is casting a shadow on the ground. That's why I kind of like having something similar here, and then I can always sort of stretch things around, skew things around a bit if I need to. So here's where I might use the ones that are already casting shadows, let's say. Let me just go back and see what else I have in here. Documents, here we go. Entourage. And then I've taken some out and I just post them as PNGs. So maybe I'll also insert some of these here in a minute just to sort of see what we have. But first things first, I'm not able to select any of these things for whatever reason. I suspect it's because they're on a layer that's locked. Yeah, so I can't accidentally screw something up until I'm ready to select something and copy and paste it. Now I can. I can select this and I can say copy, and then I'll just paste this right in. And now I need to adjust the scale a bit. I'm going to hold down the Shift key when I click on that corner and stretch it. Now that again, that maintains the aspect ratio. And I'm going to place it, let's say back here. Let's move it over here. That looks nice. Now, um, we have an interesting conundrum here in that we have a flat image with a white background, and then we have a tree that's sitting on top of it. And the tree canopy looks like it could be in front of this building just a little bit. But the shadow should sort of disappear as it slides behind and it gets occluded by the building itself. So what we need to do is we need to start to clip this and actually make a clipping mask. All right. I talked about this just a little before, but let's talk. Let's do this again. So first and foremost, I still have my layers open, and you can see that I have a layer for my image with the axon, and then I have a new layer with my tree. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer one so I can't accidentally move around my building at all. It's going to just sit there for until until I need to change something. Okay, so now I have this tree, and what I need to do is I need to draw a window around the parts of the tree that I actually want to see, and then disclude the parts that I want to clip away. All right, so the way we can do that is we basically draw a window inside the shape that we draw. We'll be able to see the tree. Anything else, any part of the tree outside that shape will then be clipped and are masked off. Okay, and so what you can see here is that I don't necessarily have a clean shape. It's not like I can use a rectangle or a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a custom shape. Basically, going to do a polyline, but in this case in Illustrator. what I can do is I can use the pen tool for this, right? It looks like a almost like a fountain pen tip for the icon. And I'm going to be very careful. I'm just going to click and release without moving my mouse around. Click, right? So what happens if I click and slide my mouse? You start to build in a curve. I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to just, and then go up here and I'm going to estimate where this would actually be. Let's just, I can always change that later. Click, click, and then I'm just going to draw a window around the rest of the tree. I don't want to mask any other parts of the tree off. Okay, so now I have my shape and I actually returned back at the beginning point, so it's closed. Just so you can see, I'm going to make sure that I'm just going to show you the what this shape looks like. I'm going to beef up the line weight a little bit. Right. So here you can see that I have this new shape, right? And it sits over top of this tree. All right, let's see here. Now this tree, I'm just going to turn its opacity down just a smidge. And I'm going to turn this other layer back on. And I'm just going to make sure that this, I was just eyeballing it. I have pretty good tick marks in my eyeballs. Look at that. That was damn near perfect. So you can see that it really does line up with that corner, right? Just wanted to make sure that that was the case. All right. And years of experience, now I can eyeball a hypothetical intersection somewhere off in space, right? So I'm going to select both of these at once. I'm going to select the tree, hold down the shift button, select my mask shape. So I have both of them selected. I'm going to go to Object, pull down, Clippy Mask, and Make. Okay. Now I've clipped the tree with that shape. Everything inside that shape, you can see I'm highlighting the shape right now. I can see the tree inside of it. Everything outside of that shape, that's tree and shadow, it disappears. It's masked. All right. And then one other thing that's going to bug me just a little bit. You see how this shadow is just a little lighter than this shadow? Oh, that just drives me up a wall. So I'm going to just double click in here, double click inside, just get this shape and just up the opacity just a smidge more. Try to make it better match this shadow over here. Yeah, why not? Okay. And then I can just double click out and I have a tree. All right. Let's add some humans. Okay, okay, okay. All right, all right, all right. Let's see. File open. I'm going to open up another Illustrator file. I can have multiple Illustrator files open at once. You see that they're just sort of organized by tabs here. So here's my tree Illustrator file that I opened. I'm just going to close that for right now. Don't save, whatever. Let's file open. I'm just going to go to my silhouette pack here. Let's try to find some good people. This is a nice one because I already have some that are converted to white versus black silhouettes. Let's see. So yeah, maybe I'll go ahead and select this one. All right. So you can see I have basically 2 pages worth. Okay, let's add these two lovey-dovey people. All right, Control C or Command C for copy, depending on which operating system you're using. Command V or Control V to paste. You're attempting to paste or drag into one or more layers that are locked or hidden. Oh, I'm going to say no. What it's telling me is, what are you doing? Like, I'm going to go ahead and unlock this layer. I'm going to go ahead and just paste again. Okay. And it's pasting on something called layer one. I want layer one just to be my building. So I'm going to go ahead and just make these guys bigger just for a moment so we can see them easier. And I'm going to show you how you can change the layer of an object in Illustrator. I have the object selected, right? In this case, these silhouettes. And I'm going to go down to my layer box. And I have a layer one and a layer three. Of course, I can always double click on these label names, these labels like layer three, double click and then rename it. So I can call this trees. This one I can call base drawing or something like that, axon, building, whatever. Now I can add a plus down here at the bottom to add a new layer. It's just by default calling it layer three. I'm going to call this humans. Sounds really clinical. And now look at this layers box, right? We have things where we can turn layers on and off. We can lock them. Um, but what you'll notice is that I have these silhouettes selected, and then it's telling me that, see this blue box? It's telling me that what I have selected is in the base drawing layer. And if I want to change it and put it in the humans layer, I just take this blue box and I drag it up to the humans layer. And now you can see that the humans layer has a green color to it. When I select it, it has the green color to match. And what I can do now is start to estimate what kind of size these people would be at. Um, and then, I might also, I mean, they're really dark, so I might sort of tone them down a bit. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so again, I visual emphasis. I don't want to if I like having scaled figures, but I'm not making a cartoon or a movie like these aren't characters that I want you to be interested in. So if your eye is automatically drawn to these people and not the architecture, I've kind of failed, right? I really want you to focus on this building. This is just simply a cue for understanding scale, right? Or for beginning to understand program. I could have some people out here playing frisbee, or when I cut a section through this, I can start to add people on floors and things like that. And so that's a nice segue to let's do one of these with this one of our sections, right? So um, let me go ahead and move on to the next artboard. By the way, when you just hold down the space key on the keyboard, it turns your cursor to pan. That's a really quick way to just sort of slide or move up or down. And then of course, I'm using a MacBook Pro, so it's Command, but Control plus on your keyboard zooms in, Control minus zooms out, Control 0 fits the active page to your screen. Okay, so I'm just going to slide over here, maybe zoom out just a bit, and I'm going to go ahead and place. Let's see. Oh, these are all in the different directories. That's super. What was I thinking? Maybe I'll just, yeah, maybe I'll add one of these sections here. I'll just add this one. All right, there we go. Da, 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 da. And I'm just going to hold down and, yeah, there we are. Mm-mm-mm. Now, in this case, I want the height to maximize the page. So maybe I'll select it and say transform. And now for height, I'll enter an 11, and then of course it'll stretch it. Oh, it stretched it. Let's see. I have to make sure that my proportions, my aspect ratio is constrained. So if I change the width, the height changes with it, same vice versa. So I'll change the height to 11. All right, there we go. Now, what's annoying about this is my viewport was in landscape format, but it's a portrait or tall drawing. But I'll just instead of trying to crop this, I'm just gonna utilize the whole page for the section. I'll start to add ground, and then I actually have some outdoor space. I can then begin to think about vegetation and creating an outdoor room, maybe with a tree canopy. Have some people out there as well just for fun, right? All right, so there's a couple of things that I notice here. Sections, this section is lacking ground. That's a big no-no. We always want to show the ground and emphasize that there's weight at the bottom of a section drawing, right? So immediately I'm going to just come over here and make sure that I can draw a rectangle and that it's black fill with no outline. And I'm just going to eyeball this thing, figure out where I'm going to put ground. There we are. Ta-da. And from here, it's just simply adding humans and people, or humans and trees, humans and people. Is it mutually exclusive? I think not. Okay, anyway. Yeah, here we go. Here's a group of four walking, four across. It never fails. Sometimes when I'm walking, like people walk four across and take up the whole sidewalk, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna walk faster than you. I'm not from Las Vegas. I walk faster than that. Okay, anyway. Let's see here. Da-da-da-da. There we are. Oh, let's make them a little smaller. And then let's make sure that their feet are actually touching the ground. There we are. Okay, let's do some more with some of these trees. I'm going to open up this pack of trees. Let's see, where are they? Tree silhouettes. Yeah, there we are. Open with Illustrator. All right. Yeah, let's look at some trees here. Whoop, whoop. Look at these trees. Mm-mm. Some tree goodness. All right, I'll pick that one. Why not? Control C, Control V. That needs to be scaled so it looks a little more accurate. Almost as if it's actually could provide some shade for humans walking around it. Now, what's interesting about this is that I could, if I look at this drawing, I think that maybe the black is just a little too dark for any of these. I can always select them all and then start to turn down their opacity a bit, right? Or, here's another interesting thing. Um, if let's say I want to sort of imply that it's kind of wooded over here on this side, I can add more trees, and then I can then use opacity and brightness or darkness to imply depth, even in a flat drawing. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say that back beyond here, maybe I have some more trees, maybe I have some conifers. Let's just get rid of this for a minute. Paste. I'm just going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to place this way back there. And I'm trying not to repeat too many trees. This one looks like it could be nice. Um, the overlaps are just fine to me. I'm cool with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the original tree that I want in the foreground. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to say arrange, bring to front. So just like if we were using pieces of trace paper, which one is on top of which, right? We can do that with layers, but if everything's on the same layers, let's say we put everything on a tree layer, then what we can do is we can start to arrange them, by right-clicking on them and say send to back, bring to the front, send backwards, send forwards, whatever. Right now they're all on different layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this layer and drag it so that it's at the top, right? And then I'm going to move this one back. All right. And now I'm going to just sort of slowly, carefully, again, give this a little more depth here. Right. So now things that are closer are darker. Some that aren't are they get further away there. They get lighter. I'm just gonna maybe lighten it up just a little more. It's really competing with those human silhouettes. Right. So you can have fun with this and begin to play around. It's a form of collage and montage. We're adding some humans for scale, some trees. We're beginning to show atmospherics. We're beginning to show the natural environment, not just the built environment. Um, and I can think of no better way of doing that than in a section. Let me just open up those groups of people again. I'll add some more into the inside of my building. There we go. Show how it can be occupied and activated. What are these guys doing? It looks like they're done like some sort of routine. We can't have that. That's just not something that happens in my museum. All right. These guys look all right, I suppose. I mean, they're kind of boring, but no mimes or clowns or anything in my museum. It's just wrong on every level. All right, let's see. I'll drag these guys in here. Let's see. Let's find some more folks. Let's try to find some folks that maybe are like staring to the side here, like over the edge of something. High five. Look at that. They just completed a big project. They got their axons done. Now they're giving each other a high five for the weekend. All right. Yeah, I mean, some of these packs are ridiculous, but what I would do is not maybe focus on it too much. Don't dwell too much. What I'm going to do though, remember, sections and plans and axons are scale drawings. So once I determine the scale of a human, all of them should really match, right? So maybe these guys are just a little too big. No, actually, maybe they should be a little bigger. These look like more like youths. I can't believe I just said that. Youths. All right. And I will place these guys and just make sure that they're not floating, but also make sure that they have feet. That's kind of important. Now that one on the edge is floating. Oh, it's the worst. Man, I hate floating people. Let's go down just a smidge. And I'm actually just going to rotate this out just a bit. There we go. Yeah, all right. And now it becomes very apparent I need some railing here, or else this guy might just be pushed off the edge and fall to his untimely death. We don't want that in our museum as well. Death is frowned upon. All right, so let's add a couple of trees. This side looks really blank now. Again, you can have fun. It's like you're sort of channel your inner Bob Ross and start to give your trees little tree friends and think about what kind of shade, the humans on the outside would want when they're walking through. What's interesting about downtown is I can't think of anything more noble than planting more trees, honestly. It's a heat sink, and trees are a significant contributor to the quality of life and anything else you might be doing downtown, working, playing, or learning, or whatever it is that you're doing downtown. I can't think of anything more noble than budgeting some water for trees that provide so many things to us. So anyway, I'm always an advocate for planting trees that can provide shade and become buffers between traffic and humans, filter air. Um, and it's actually shown scientifically that there's benefits to seeing vegetation and greenery out windows especially when you're at work. There's a productivity economic argument to be made, and there's also a aesthetic and a health. There we go. This one, that one. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm not being very successful here. I'll just bring down the scale of that. Then I'm going to try to spread these out just a little bit more. Move this one over this way. I'll move this one over closer to the building. There we are. Oh, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move this one this way. I'm going to imply that this one's back behind the building a little bit, quite a ways, and actually gets occluded. And so I need to do a little bit of clipping mask again, right? Now this should be really easy. Look at this. I can just basically draw a box around it and end it right here at the edge. And I'm just going to turn that so that's an outline. Zoom in, just double check and see how well I'm. There we go. Oh, yes, look at that. All right, so I have my mask, I have my tree. Both of them are selected. And I'm going to say object, clipping mask, make. There we are. Okay. Well, we have quite the arboretum around this thing now. That's kind of what I'd like for you to sort of tease out or play around with, right? This idea of adding some entourage and starting to think about the scale and beginning to activate the spaces inside and outside of the building that you're designing when in section and a plan, etc. Right? So you can see that this is different than this. I have different rules here, right? Like I have black silhouettes. I'm using graying things out to imply depth, right? Over here, I'm adding line weight, just line work trees with shadow, and then silhouettes that are grayed out, right? So what I want to make sure is that if I experiment with different sort of rules or different aesthetics, that I'm consistent inside the same drawing, right? Like, so for instance, I can, like, when I got here, I said, well, the shadow doesn't really match up with this shadow. So I changed it because they're in the same drawing, right? These silhouettes were then too dark. So I toned them down because it's in the same drawing. If I want to change or experiment with a different sort of aesthetic style or playing around with the workflow, then I would do it on a different drawing and then be consistent within that drawing itself. Okay. Um, let's pretend that this is also, rather than being a section, this is also a plan, right? You can't tell the difference, right? Let me just add a few plan trees and we talk about that. Let's see, open and damn, right back to this entourage. All right, let's look at that silhouette tree pack and plan here. Now, here's a common mistake you'll make, right? Let's say I'm showing a tree in my section that is this big. And what you want to do is you want to measure the width of that canopy as close as you can get. I mean, you can eyeball it, but you want it to look like basically this is going to be the diameter of any trees and plan then that you use, right? So I'm going to use that as a sort of a scale, a graphic scale when I bring this silhouette in. So I'm going to say, okay, well, I have this nice tree canopy here that I'm going to show in plan. And it goes over on this side because it matches up where that tree is. Just going to move this up a bit. move this over where it needs to be. And then I'm going to bring this over and I'm just going to double check things. I'm going to make sure that this thing is stretched to be roughly the same size, right? So that it looks like this could actually be the same tree. This is the tree in plan, this is the tree in section. All right. So it's oftentimes it's easy to sort of look at these and just copy and paste them in and not worry about the size. You want to worry about the size, right? Tree canopy is something that you need to be concerned about when you design, right? Because well-placed trees can, again, increase the quality of life on the site. It can provide shade, reduce heat gain. Um, it can provide a buffer that can slow down traffic, etc. But if you're not careful, the root ball can then start to grow and buckle things that are on top of the site. The canopy might have to be trimmed awkwardly in order to avoid growing into your building or into power lines, etc. Right? So, we always want to be smart about these things and think a few steps ahead. What kind of mature tree canopy, what the size probably will be, how tall do they get, and then begin to make strategic decisions with them, just like any other thing you would place on the site, whether it's a column or a wall. I would argue a tree is just an outdoor column, right? And the canopy is just an outdoor canopy. Okay. So thinking about the site holistically from one end to the other, not just what's inside this big, dark poche walls, but thinking about those outdoor spaces, really important. I don't think I have any people in plan. I don't necessarily need to see that anyway. I think once you start to show the tree canopies and the sections, right? And now the question I'm sure is popping up in some of your heads. Well, how many sections and how many plans am I supposed to be doing? Right? So I'm not necessarily going to prescribe that. What I saw were that some of you are really sort of cutting these things open and doing quite a few sections. What I would say is at a minimum, you want to have two sections that you've brought into Illustrator and started to add humans and trees to. And at minimum, I would want to see two plan cuts that you're doing, plus two of the axons, right? The two most interesting axons. Um, that you have, and then start to place trees and people to start showing again the scale. All right. So two, two, and two would be a minimum. If you have more than that and you want to keep practicing, that's fine. If you are still working on, modeling things, take a break from that, pause, and go through this workflow. Make the clipping plane, cut the section, cut two sections, bring them out, bring them into Illustrator. Try this workflow sooner rather than later. And my argument there is that if everybody's going to still continue to tweak and fine tune your light vessel, and in fact, more light vessels in the future. And that sections and plans, cutting them and starting to see, you can start to see some of the challenges and opportunities can actually help you figure out and prioritize what the next step of edits might be, right? So take a break from let's say figuring out how the window patterns work, or do I move this to the left or the right, or do I slide this one this which way, right? You can take a break from that for the time being and go through this workflow, right? Putting the clipping plane in, situating the section or the plan or the axon, turning it to monochromatic display mode, doing the viewport capture to PNG, bringing it into Illustrator, adding some of these trees and humans and things like that, right? And I would argue that, now that I see this, it's like it makes me wonder, like, well, what happens up here, right? It looks like there's this hidden light source. What happens here? That could be really important as it gets spotlit at certain times of the day. And then it looks like I have this sort of opening here. There's a wall that ends here, and there's a wall that ends here at the bottom. So what's actually happening over here? Why would people look this way, right? I need railing. Maybe I put in another half wall, sort of a plane, just using the same geometry and geometry that I've been playing with. And then, is this too tall of a space, or do I need to make this so that maybe it's porous, right? I can get I can sort of appreciate this space from this space. Maybe I need to sort of slice things up or make an opening, right? So again, you start to get different readings of your design when you start to cut sections in different places or plans in different sections. It can help you make the next round of decisions, right? Where do I put a window? Or what, do I need to slide this wall or something like that, right? So this is a perfect time to sort of pause from all the modeling that you've been doing and let's start looking at the drawing types, right? And I saw some wonderful sections. I mean, I was looking over I mean, the one that sticks out was Lucio. Yours were like really interesting, right? I'm really curious to sort of see how what kinds of sections that you start to produce in Illustrator with people and trees, activate them. Um, and then just as a quick reminder, next week, not this week, don't have to worry about this weekend, but next week, let me just pull up the right directory here. We'll start taking some of these perspectives that you have, and we'll bring them into Photoshop, and we'll start to do similar things. We'll start to add humans. We can actually start to add some textures as overlay layers. So we can imply that some of these walls might or maybe concrete, but we can do that by just finding some really high res concrete images that textures, and then beginning to add them as overlay layers. We can begin to accentuate light and dark contrast between shadows and bright spots. We can actually add a little bit of the effect of the volumetric light and sort of the dust and texture you'd see of the rays coming in, etc. Right? So we can have some fun there and starting to learn some Photoshop and with the post-production of, let's say, just a very generic white clay render perspective. All right. This is a nice one. I can imagine just one person standing right here, just contemplating life. Right there, right? Like I can just imagine somebody looking out this direction, out toward, and then who knows what's in this window frame view-wise, but and then a shadow, their shadow just sort of laying back. That'd be so good. Um, but anyway, okay, so all right, I'm going to keep recording, but for the time being, what questions do you guys have? I'll keep the recording going in case any of these questions might be helpful to revisit later if you're rewatching. Any questions? Or do you guys just want to get busy and get to work? Okay. I'm not hearing any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.